Roll on down the highway, which is just what rugby legend Sir John Kirwin is doing at the moment all around the country, no less, in a Land Rover and bringing, awareness to schools about mental health and how we can teach children to deal with mental health issues, which is a big problem in our country. And Sir John, I think you are there right now. How you doing?
Did you play that song for me, Down the Highway?
Yeah, of course.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Turn Overdrive. I haven't heard them for ever.
Well, I do tend to dip back into the classics from the 70s, given I'm getting older.
Awesome,
yeah.
Awesome.
But
How are you?
I played that for you. I'm well, thanks, and I hope you're doing well too. And actually, because you are a music man, and I actually thought later on, I thought, I should have asked John to give me some song choices because I know that you play guitar, don't you?
Well, I play guitar poorly. It's for my mental health. I have a ruminate in mine, a monkey brain, I call it. I call my monkey Bob. So I've got to distract him to relax. So during COVID, because COVID was taking so much away from me, I decided that I've always wanted to learn the guitar. So I took it up. Sounds like I'm killing a cat in the lounge. Not even the dog stays. That's how bad it is. But it's very good for me. Very good for my mental health.
Do you know, same for me. I've got an acoustic I've had for a while, and it's just, I don't know what it is, but, and Mum used to say that to me if I'd ever get a bit wound up, she'd say, just go and play your guitar. It's like, and it works. Mum knows. But
it does.
Yeah. Now, where exactly are you right now?
We're just in Christchurch. I'm going to one of the local schools now, and then we've got another event here tonight. So, Wellington yesterday, so we're into it.
You are, and I mean, not the easiest time of year to get around, John, especially with the wild weather. Did you have any issues getting down to the south?
No, it's been fantastic. We've had a really good run actually, but bit of a challenging weather today. No, but we're all fine. We've obviously got the Land Rover, so it's not a bad way to travel. No,
very nice. You have quite a big crew around you, do you?
Yeah, it's been in a massive operation. Steve Kensington, who's actually running Land Rover, has invested a lot of money into the promotions of it. So, part of the idea of the drive was to heighten the awareness and raise money. So, he spent a lot of money. So we've had some really neat people around just looking after us, making sure things run smoothly, getting the exposure we need. So it's been an amazing trip. It's been really inspirational.
What sort of messages are you getting? I mean, you've been to Hamilton, Tauranga, Napier, Wellington already, and you've met a lot of kids, I guess. I bet you get swamped, do you?
I don't know who I am. They say, who's that koro up the front there, that grey-headed old guy? Some of the parents know who I am, especially the grandparents. There's a bit of worry in that, but anyway.
Yeah, isn't it just?
No. The kids don't probably know me as a rugby guy anymore. They sort of know me either as a commentator or the mental health guy. But it's just been, out of the mouths of babes, there's just some really beautiful stuff coming out. And I think the biggest message is we just need this, JK. The teachers and the parents are really concerned about, the mental health of their children. And so it's just been accepted incredibly well, and I just tell my story that, 5 years ago I woke up and felt that I'd failed, and failure doesn't scare me anymore. It's one of my biggest teachers. So I wanted to look at how we can do things differently. So raised $250,000. We facilitated for 1 year what we need to be doing, and out of that facilitation, and I got different people to look at it. Child psychiatrists, psychologists, marketing leaders, businessmen, tech entrepreneurs, musicians, artists. Because if you keep looking at something the same way, you're going to come up with the same answers. So, what the main point came out was this needs to be a curriculum-based program. We need to make sure we don't put any extra pressure on the schools from a financial or human resource point of view. It needs to be co-designed, because what might work in Wellington might not work in Christchurch, might not work in Northland.
Right.
So after that, we created Mighty, and what we do is we have coaches, senior teachers who go in and upskill the school and implement the curriculum through the teachers, and that's also important to leave the teachers with something. So, that's what we're doing, and we're in 70 schools at the moment. We've got 300 and probably a whole lot more now on the waiting list, and this trip's about raising $1 million, which will get us to another 11,000 tamariki.
Incredible. So it's been 2 years in the making, this, hasn't it?
Probably a little bit more. Probably a year in facilitation, and we've been in schools now for about 2.5 years, but we also wanted to make sure that we were doing the analysis of it to make sure that it works. So, this is probably our 3rd year in school, and as everyone knows, we had a little bit of a hiccup called COVID, which was a challenge for all of us. So, probably our 3rd year.
So just getting a handle on how it works. So you're supporting the teachers, but so I'm just trying to explain it in layman's terms. So like I'm a pupil and I'm going to school, and in the past you'd go and see your school counsellor if you had issues, wouldn't you, at high school? Would this work where there are designated teachers that can deal with children and have the time and space to actually talk to them about their mental health?
No, not at all. This is so. I talk about ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. So those kids that are unwell and possibly suffering, that's where the counsellors come in, and that's where people like Mike King, who's an absolute legend, is doing great work raising money to get people counselling help. What we're trying to do is actually put a fence at the top of the cliff and then move it back. So what the teachers do, they've got a curriculum-based mental health subject that goes right across the curriculum. So, for example, they will do English, math, science, and mental health. So you get a report, and you'll get your English, math, and science report, and also how you're doing mental health-wise.
Oh, great.
So then hopefully, they learn the tools and the techniques that they need for what this world's throwing at them.
Gotcha. Do you think, like I mentioned earlier, that social media, the internet's putting immense pressure on children, do you think that's a big part of why children are suffering more these days, or is that a bit of an old-timer's perspective?
No, I think I think technology is putting pressure on everyone. No one's inboxes is ever empty anymore. No one finishes work. It follows them everywhere. Technology is an amazing thing, but you also need to have special tools, mental health tools that deal with it. You need to be able to switch off from technology, and so do your kids. The pressure on our kids nowadays, I reckon, is way bigger than our generation. So they are way more under pressure. Cyberbullying, expectations around how you look. So definitely, technology is definitely a contributor to society and where we're going, but we're not going to stop it. We're not going to halt it. So, what I talk about is having the tools and the techniques to deal with that.
It's alarming that we do have some of the worst mental health stats in the OECD, and like you're saying in the foundation, that it's going to take a generation to sort of change this trajectory, which is a really important point. So I guess, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's a very, very important first step.
Yeah, look, it's this trip's about hope. People say, what's your goal? And I want New Zealand to be the best mental health stats in the OECD. To do that, I believe it's about education. One of the first things Aaron spoke about was, because I thought it should go into secondary schools, right? This is me personally who started this thing. And everybody, all the psychiatrists, psychologists, it's too late. Our kids need it by the time they get there. So, it's just starting in year one and just slowly building up the resilience and the understanding of mental health. I talk about the IQ of mental health and the EQ, how I'm feeling, how I understand my emotions, but then what I can do about it. And already in some of the schools, we're just getting unbelievable response. So, the one of the things we had the other day, there's actually no monsters under my bed. This is from a 6-year-old. There's no monsters under my bed, and I know that's just a scary thought, and I can either breathe my way through it or get mummy to turn the light on. Aww. So how cool is that?
That's adorable. You must get some gems, like you say, out of the mouths of babes. And I didn't realise it was starting at such a young age, but in many ways that's the best time to start, isn't it? Because even though it might be as simple to them as monsters under the bed, because we all had those fears when we were kids, didn't we? And ghosts and things like that. So why not start? Whereas in our day, you're right, it was secondary school, and it was normally just as you're about to leave secondary school that you might be feeling wobbly because you're going through all these other changes as well, and and the opposite sex, etc., etc. So it's way too late. You're right. So hats off to you for getting in early.
Yeah, look, I think when you look at look back at history, you sort of understand that, how do we change our attitude towards seatbelts? We taught our 5-year-olds and they told mum and dad to put the seatbelts on. How do we change the education around smoking is bad for you? We've got the kids to do it. We told the kids it's no good, and then they go home and tell mum and dad not to smoke. I think it's the same for mental health. If we teach our kids the tools and the understanding, then they start talking around about it at the table, and I think that's when you get generational change.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you've already helped, over more than 12,000 children. At the end of this mighty road trip, how many do you reckon that you could reach in the future?
Yeah, well, $1 million, if we can raise $1 million. We want to be right across the 1,200 primary schools, right? But we also want to make sure that we grow at the right pace. So the $1 million will reach another 11,000 kids and be able for us to start talking to some of those schools that are on the waiting list. So if you want to contribute, you can www.mightydrive.org, and Steve Kensington from Land Rover has given me the Defender. If you see the Defender I'm driving down in, you $20 a ticket, and he's given that for me to give away. So that's a raffle ticket you can get involved in.
Okay.
Or you can text Mighty, MITEY, to 2449 to give a $3 donation.
You're a good interview, John, because you just you don't really need me to ask questions, because that was my next question, was how do we donate? So look out for the convoy, obviously, and get to the schools, and I can advertise. I mean, next up, you're in Christchurch, so you're actually heading off this afternoon, aren't you, to, is it Fito School?
Yeah, going there, which will be really, really neat. And like you say, out of the mouths of babes, yesterday one young boy said to me, "Excuse me, have you ever scored a try in your underpants?"
And what did you say?
Of course. Haven't you?
Oh man, you must get some priceless things. Could you not write a book actually about some of, about this journey? I mean, really, it would be quite a nice story, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. I mean, one of the things I do for my mental health, I have a daily mental health plan that keeps me from, what I used to be just surviving, now I'm thriving. And one of those things is to look for inspiration every day. And it's been pretty easy on this road trip. I've been finding some inspiration. This beautiful young boy yesterday made me cry. He was 7, and I started talking about mental health, and he's put up his hand. I said, yeah. And he said, I've been getting some help from a psychiatrist for my mental health. It's been amazing. And thank you. I'm really looking forward to learning Mighty. I mean, how cool was that?
It's 7 years old.
We know that our tamariki are starting to show signs of anxiety at 9 and stuff like that now. So if we can get them early enough, that we will change the course of their mental health journey.
Yeah.
That was pretty special.
And anxiety impacts in so many different ways. Like, doesn't it present in a lot of different ways for different people?
Yeah, and look, you need anxiety in your life. It's a good thing. It's just you can't keep constantly stacking yourself with anxiety and stress. And you need to know how to deal with it. You need to know how to identify it and then how to get rid of it. What I tell people is, stress and anxiety is accumulative. If you've got it today and you don't get rid of it, you carry it to tomorrow. I mean, you remember when you were 23 and you just got your first job, by the time you got to the car park, you're on holiday. By the time you got on holiday, it felt like you'd been away a week. You went away 3 weeks, it felt like 3 months, and you went back to work, right, refreshed. Yes. Think about your last holiday. You couldn't disconnect from your cell phone. You didn't know whether you should answer emails or not. You're still stressed. And by the time you start relaxing, it's time to go back to work. So, those things we need to teach our children every day. Get rid of your stress, get rid of your anxiety, identify your emotions, have the tools that you need to go to be thriving every day.
How important is meditation for mental health, do you think?
Meditation, well, look, everyone's different, right? So meditation is amazing. And what I did is I tried all sorts of different stuff. And then I've got, the 5 or 6 things that I do in my day that keep me incredibly well. I tried meditation and it wasn't for me because I have a ruminating mind, right? So I'm an active relaxer. For me, it's playing the guitar, cooking.
Yes.
And I also say it's all right to do 2 birds with 1 stone with your mental health, So I love cooking because my mind settles down and relaxes. Guess who else loves my cooking? My wife.
Yeah,
Two
nice.
birds with one stone. How good. How good.
That's right.
And you can fit it in, and, So it's important that we're all different and we all find our own. We talk about the 6 pillars at Groove. I've also got a mental health business. So if people want to download a free app called Groove, you can also go on there and look at the 6 pillars. I put those 6 pillars in my day. I breathe. I do some mindfulness. I read. I do all those things in my day.
And that's the thing. No, I'm just interested in meditation because I think it's certainly helped someone like me, particularly with sort of running on adrenaline a lot. And it's not, which you often do, I think, in media and in the broadcast business generally, and that's one thing that can wind me down, because if you have a busy mind. But I just wondered whether for children that really works, or maybe you're right, maybe it is more of an active thing that takes them, like that's why sport's so good, isn't it? Or swimming in a pool, or swimming generally,
Yeah, all of the above. All of the above, What I try to say to people is try stuff. And if you get that feeling of calm, if you manage to switch your mind off, then it's good for you. This is not a competition. This is not a get a certificate on your wall. This is about trying stuff that suits you. I mean, some people paint. I don't know did you have an Auntie Betty? Did you have an Auntie Betty? I found this out the other day. It was unbelievable. My Auntie Betty had purple rinse hair. Did you have an Auntie Betty?
Purple rinser, no, sadly. Would have liked it though.
Anyway, Auntie Betty was a knitter, right? Tick, 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 used to drive us all nuts, but, knitting, for example,
right,
is a very, very good way of meditating, of getting into,
Yeah.
Who would have thought? I just learned that the other day and thought, no wonder Auntie Betty used to knit us all those horrible cardigans. Like, no one wanted them.
Oh no, there were plenty of knitting aunties in my family too. Yes, that's right. Mum was always knitting, and when I went to London, her main concern was that I was wearing big warm jumpers, which I wanted to be a style queen, right, hitting the streets of London. And she's like, "Have you got on that big cozy jumper that I made you?" And it's like, well, no, not today. No, because when you're 20, you don't wear many clothes anyway, because that's what it's about, isn't it?
You want to look cool.
You want to look cool.
If you're cold.
It's super uncool to wear a coat to school with a hood on in my day. If it was raining, you had to get wet because it was uncool. There was so many rules. It was bad.
Especially when Auntie Betty ran out of wool and finished it off with a different colour.
That's right. So that's a New Zealand tradition, I would say, John, actually. I think that's something...
Waste not, want not. Waste not, want not.
No, it's part of our childhood. But, honestly, you just wonder, though, in New Zealand, in our beautiful little, in these islands, why we're in such a mess, and I start when I talk to you, and I think of all the great work you've done, and I just think of why is there so much stress and anxiety? We should be, people in the Northern Hemisphere think that we live on this dreamy place where there's no issues and we're just cut free but it's not like that, and it shouldn't be like this, should it?
No, it should not. As you know, I'm married to Italians, so I have a lot of Italian visitors, and I remember a really good mate of mine coming down pre-COVID, drove around our beautiful country, come back and said, "Man, this is just an amazing place, and the people are so beautiful. Why are your people killing themselves?"
Yeah,
I said,
that's right.
I said, I don't know. It's complicated. I don't think there's one answer. But I think that the education of mental health and the understanding of this needs to start in our kids, and that was one of the big motivations for creating Mighty. This needs to be a curriculum now. This is something we need to educate on around the future, because it's not going to slow down. Technology is not going to stop, the fast pace of this world is not going to stop. I talk about my dad. My dad went home from work and nothing followed him. Yeah. My dad went home on the weekend, nothing followed him, and I said, how many times do you look at your phone after dinner because you've got emails you haven't caught up with, or you go and have a cup of tea and the phone interrupts you. My phone is not invited to my coffee date, by the way. Not invited, because it's rude.
Yeah, good on you.
It's interrupting me.
Good for you. Yeah, it's good, and I think more of us need to do that. And there's restaurants in the States, I know, that actually don't let you have your cell phones when you're eating, which I think is a really good thing. And I do think also that that's another thing about being listened. If you're out with someone, you want to think that they're listening to you and you can converse with them, and you can't when they're on the phone. You just can't. Or texting, But
exactly.
That's a hard one.
But listen, all of us struggle with that, right? It's something you need to learn. You need to learn to be able to leave it behind, because it is part of what we do now. So you can't stop it. You've just got to have tools to manage it.
That's right. You know, it's funny you mentioned Italy, because I was going to speak to you about that, because I have this sort of like idealistic view of what it would be like to live in a country like that, you know, and how that everything would just be golden and full of olive trees and beautiful wine, and I know that's your passion as well, and, you know, and gorgeous food. But I guess every country has their problems. It's just how you approach it, and maybe we don't talk enough, like maybe the Italians do.
Yeah. Well, the Italians have one of the lowest suicide rates in the developed world. And I do believe because they're way more emotional. They get their emotions out. They have words that identify their emotions that we don't use. You know, they're far more emotional. They cry more. They yell more. You know?
Yeah, they do.
And so
they do. The men cry. They hug a lot. They hug a lot. It's brilliant.
Exactly.
It's so. Sorry.
And they enjoy food. So no, family is fundamental. So sitting and having dinner, you know, or lunch every day is fundamentally important. And I'm leaving on the 20th, by the way. I don't want to make you jealous, but I'm going back to my Italian home. My wife's already there, so
wow.
First time I'll see my son after 2.5 years.
Is that right? Yeah. Goodness me. You'll be beside yourself.
Yeah, well, it'll be amazing. I cannot wait and catch up with all my friends and lie under those olive trees like you talk about.
Oh, I am jealous. Yeah, that sounds absolutely beautiful. And how long have you got over there?
I'm going for 5 weeks, yeah.
Nice. Well, you'd want to, wouldn't you? You know.
Yeah, you can't go over there for 10 days. That's not worth it.
No.
Life's too short.
How old is your son now, can I ask?
He's 26.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got a daughter, Francesca, 28.
Yeah.
We've got a wine and port business she runs. She's doing incredibly well.
Isn't that good?
She also used to play a bit of volleyball, but finished.
Yes.
And Nico's 26, and my son Luca's 22. He's a rower, lives in Karapiro.
He's a rower. Ah, very good.
Yeah.
And so, and the older boy in Italy, is he sporty?
Yeah, he's a professional soccer player.
Oh,
yeah.
I should have known that. Apologies. Yeah.
No, not at all.
No.
He's real Italian, man. He's real Italian. It's a fashion show every time he walks out of the house.
Is that right? Well, you're a bit of a style man, aren't you? You like fashion, don't you?
Is it wrong that your son starts giving you advice about how you look?
No, I think it's great. What does he say to you?
He says, "I've got a dress for my age. Dad, if you get that wrong, you look like a dork. So make sure you're dressing for your age. You can be." He wants me to have relaxed elegance.
Does he not
try and stay too young?
He doesn't want you to wear the Canadian tuxedo, the double denim?
No.
Oh, see, because I quite like
a Muppet, Dad.
Oh no, I like doing that.
Like
I've got on denim flares today, and I'm sort of
but denim flares that's cool.
Oh, I don't know, but you know, isn't that's kind of lovely that he gives you advice. So when you go see him, so it's 2.5 years. What a reunion that's going to be, hey?
Yeah, and it's been an interesting journey. My father-in-law passed away, and my mother-in-law's not too good. That's why my wife's over there at the moment. So, you know, COVID has been, we all have stories, right? So it's been an interesting journey. But, you know, I'm really, really positive about getting back over there and can't wait to see him. And he's doing really well. He's got a girlfriend, man. Oh,
that's nice.
He's got a girlfriend. So I've only met her once very briefly, so I'll get to know her, which will be nice. Yeah,
won't that be lovely? I wonder if she's bellissimo.
Yes, it's bellissima.
Oh, is it bellissima?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was masculine. A is feminine, so bella or bello. So bella
bellissima
is feminine, and that's it. Beautiful.
Okay. Bellissimo.
If you're talking to a man.
The only Italian I know is rude, so I can't share it with you. Apart from ciao bella. Yeah, no, it's really bad. It's really bad. I would be out on my ear 100%. It's super rude. I don't know why. Why did I learn this? A mate of mine in the UK taught me that, but I just think it's an amazing language. I wish I could speak it. It's fantastic. Of course, you can. You know, I mean, what a nice side of your life that must be. You know, so many great memories and so many connections that you still have there, and of course with your wife and. Yeah, amazing. Do you think your son will always be there? He'll never come back to these shores to live?
Oh, look, I try and teach my kids to never say never, but he's very well settled, and he is, so we've never spoken English in the home, so our home, even when we're living in New Zealand, is very Italian, so, you know, they do have a massive side of their Italian side. It was really interesting when our kids were born. We went to the university and spoke about how you can bring a child up with both languages. So it was really interesting because they said your children will speak a little bit later, so, it'll take longer to speak both languages. Really important that you speak it in the home, and they'll start pushing back at 4. And then the other thing they said from a psychological point of view, which I never considered, was it's important to have 2 languages because they could identify as Italians and not New Zealanders.
Yes.
So that was interesting, eh?
Yeah, it is. And you speak Japanese as well, don't you?
Probably a little bit like your Italian.
A bit rough and a bit rude.
I know, a little rude. I can, like my dad said, if you can get a bear in a feed, you can speak enough. So that's what I'd always try and learn.
He's right. The only thing I learned when I was living in London do you remember Tony Johnson, the sports broadcaster?
Yeah.
Oh, you'd know him because he's a rugby commentator. I'm sure you do. Yeah. TJ. So anyway, we lived in London together, and all we knew was like how to say 2 beers please in 3 different languages. It was just terrible. So how heathen is that? How Kiwi were we? We were not terribly sophisticated, but we tried our hardest,
Oh, beautiful. You got to try.
You got to try. But I have probably kept you too long, and I know you've got quite a bit to do this afternoon going to the school, John. I'd love to talk to you more.
Love to chat.
Honestly, you've been amazing, and I wish you all the best. You're a truly great person, and it's been you've been on my wish list for ages to talk to. So it's been really nice to connect and keep up the good work, eh?
Same with you. Thank you very much for your time.
All the best for the mighty trip. Talk soon.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sir John Kirwin on Southbeat on the platform this afternoon. He's got to go to a Christchurch school shortly to discuss this new drive for mental health awareness in schools. It's going to be part of the curriculum, so you'll get a report on your maths, your science, your English, whatever, and also whatever they teach in schools these days, and also your mental health state, and that's got to be a good thing starting from very young, and helping Kiwi kids navigate this tricky, stressful, anxious world that we live in right now. How cool was that?